Rage Against the Machine is the anti-pop phenomenon that dominated the 1990s with their signature blend of conscious hip-hop and hardcore punk. In our previous installments, we've discussed the diverse musical and political influences of the legendary four-piece, to their soundtrack to the 1992 LA uprising, Killing in the Name, an ode to the courageous sacrifices of the American Indian movement, Freedom. And most recently, QAnon's hilarious attempt at hijacking the anti-racist decolonization anthem, Year of the Boomerang.
So I'm going out heavy, sort of like Mount Tai, with 5 centuries of penitentiary.
Our initial plan was to make this one about Rage's explosive track, Down Rodeo, as 2021 has seen Sleepy Joe and the Democratic Party once again lull the population back into neoliberal complacency. Fuck Joe Biden. Say it with your chest.
You say what your chest is.
However, subscriber That Guy Named Sky suggested we cover the 40th anniversary of the imprisonment of Mumia Abu-Jamal. So we'll save the protest inspiration for the springtime, when the anti-work and eviction defense movements have gained some more traction. Anyway, in this episode, we'll jump ahead to discuss the band's 1999 song, Voice of the Voiceless, and the political prisoner whose harrowing tale elucidates the racism and corruption embedded at the core of the American Fraternal Order of Police. Over on our Discord server, we've got a little debate going. Maybe Tom Morello just isn't that good of a guitarist. Now, that's not to say the man isn't innovative. Like many creators in the modern era, Morello is more of a curator of sounds than a musical prodigy. Here, he generates a drone sound from guitar feedback and employs Digitech's whammy pedal to control harmonics. Resulting in a mesmerizing sound that mimics both contemporary synthesizer technology and traditional Indian sitar arrangements. In an attempt to subvert copyright, we'll be referencing this rare live performance from Osaka, Japan. Despite the bootleg audio quality, and this being the only live performance of the song, the unparalleled cohesion and natural musicianship of these players is instantly recognizable.
Most people probably don't listen to the lyrics, but they should.
Mumia Abu-Jamal was born on April 24, 1954 in West Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. A member of the Black Panther Party at 14, he was given the name Mumia by a Kenyan high school professor and supporter of the transformational Mau Mau uprising, of which Tom Morello's father was a participant. Mao Zedong's "A Single Spark Can Start a Prairie Fire" is the 1930 letter that fervently responds to pessimism within the Communist Party of China. Offering a sentiment that rings true in 2021, the chairman encourages us to look at the material conditions of society and the planet when determining the revolutionary climate.
The subjective forces of the revolution have indeed been greatly weakened. The remaining forces are very small, and those comrades who judge by appearances alone naturally feel pessimistic. But if we judge by essentials, it is quite another story. Here, we can apply the old Chinese saying, "A single spark can start a prairie fire." In other words, our forces, although small at present, will grow very rapidly. In the conditions prevailing in China, their growth is not only possible, but indeed inevitable. When we look at something, we must examine its essence and treat its appearance merely as an usher at the threshold. And once we cross the threshold, we must grasp the essence of the thing. This is the only reliable and scientific method of analysis.
If Zach De La Rocha is not in your top 10 all-time MCs, I'm going to need you to pause this video, go down to the comments, and tell me why. Right now. As a teen, Mumia was quickly promoted to the position of Minister of Information of the Black Panther Party and helped organize the infamous Revolutionary People's Constitutional Convention in 1970. When news of this event made it to local police commissioner and beloved racist Frank Rizzo, he publicly declared war on any and all black militant organizations. Rizzo would go on to become the fucking mayor of Philadelphia from 1972 to 1980, where he spent millions of taxpayer dollars on targeting groups such as Jamal's own Black United Liberation Front and the Christian Movement for Life, or MOVE. Here's a quote from the description of Rizzo's biography on Amazon, and the statue of him that was removed during the George Floyd protests in 2020. This guy not only makes Trump look liberal, but proves that we're living in some kind of fucked up dystopian time loop.
Move the statue to Marconi Plaza with us.
40 Years a Prisoner is an amazing HBO documentary produced by Philly natives Black Thought, Questlove, Common, and John Legend that covers the state-sanctioned abuse and subsequent frame job of the anarcho-primitivist organization MOVE, who from 1972 to 1985 were subjected to perhaps the most extreme police violence ever committed on American citizens. By 1975, Abu Jamal had begun a career in radio broadcasting, and in 1979, he reported on the prosecution of the Move 9, where 9 individuals were each given 30 to 100-year prison sentences for the murder of James P. Ramp, who is considered by many officials to have been killed by friendly fire. In March of 1981, Abu Jamal was fired from his position at the local National Public Radio affiliate over concerns of overtly sympathetic coverage of radical black liberation movements. Just 8 months later, he would be involved in an altercation that would change his life forever. On the morning of December 9th, Philadelphia beat cop Daniel Faulkner pulled over Mumia's brother, Billy Cook, for what he claimed to be a traffic violation. The police report says that a fight broke out, and Abu Jamal intervened, killing Faulkner. However, after 40 years of investigation, there are many unanswered questions about that fateful night. Mumia, who had no prior history of violence, was found at the scene with a bullet wound to the chest. Denied the ability to represent himself in court, the prosecution would use 11 peremptory challenges to remove potential black jurors. The strangest part of this incident is that Officer Faulkner's body was found with the driver's license of a one Arnold Howard, who reportedly lent it to Cook's coworker, Kenneth Freeman. This, as well as a number of eyewitness accounts, suggests that another individual was in the car and shot at Faulkner after he fired upon the approaching Mumia. In a completely unrelated note, 5 days later, the newsstand that Cook and Freeman owned together was burned to the ground. In the description of this video, you can find a list of sources, including the extensive Faulkner family rebuttal, which not only goes out of its way to portray Abu Jamal as a, quote, remorseless, hate-filled killer, but also attempts to defame his entire career as a journalist and anti-racist activist. Widow and owner of the Justice for Daniel Faulkner nonprofit, Maureen Faulkner, is a regular guest on Fox News and has a net worth of $10 million. Dred Scott is the enslaved black man who attempted to sue his owner in 1857, leading to the Supreme Court decision that the U.S. Constitution did not apply to people of African descent. This insanely racist resolution enraged many Americans and is considered to be a major catalyst for the Civil War. Chief Justice and Scooby-Doo villain Roger Taney said of the landmark ruling, and I quote, "A perpetual and impassable barrier was intended to be erected between the white race and the one which they had reduced to slavery."
The only mystery here is why we take our cues from a decadent neckerchief.
Here, our frontman informs us that as long as the victims of COINTELPRO remain in prison for expressing their constitutional rights to free speech, assembly, and self-defense, he will not respect wealthy white people. If these lines have you yelling into your phone about reverse racism, the dialectical refrain immediately shuts down any considerations of the idea. Cause and effect. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The generational fear and anger that people of color have towards the white population is valid. Nothing was solved by emancipation or desegregation. Both of these tactics just forced people of color into white society, which is based in the careless theft of the world's cultures and natural resources. If a person of color acts in an aggressive, prejudiced manner towards a white person, it is not backed by a centuries-long system of oppression. It is based in the fact that even the most well-intentioned white people end up using their privilege to appropriate what works for them and discard the rest. Your mere acceptance of diversity is not progress. 1984 is George Orwell's ubiquitously prescient novel that serves as a comprehensive material analysis of international relations in post-World War II Europe. Considering himself to be a democratic socialist, he is often quoted to be openly critical of communism. In one of many books within the book, Emmanuel Goldstein's Ignorance is Strength demonstrates his vast and nuanced political understanding.
As early as the beginning of the 20th century, human equality had become technically possible. It was still true that men were not equal in their native talents, and that functions had to be specialized in ways that favored some individuals against others. But there was no longer any real need for class distinctions or for large differences of wealth. In earlier ages, class distinctions had been not only inevitable but desirable. Inequality was the price of civilization. With the development of machine production, however, the case was altered. Even if it was still necessary for human beings to do different kinds of work, it was no longer necessary for them to live at different social or economic levels. Therefore, from the point of view of the new groups who were on the point of seizing power, human equality was no longer an ideal to be striven after, but a danger to be averted. In more primitive ages, when a just and peaceful society was in fact not possible, it had been fairly easy to believe it. The idea of an earthly paradise in which men should live together in a state of brotherhood, without laws and without brute labor, had haunted the human imagination for thousands of years. And this vision had a certain hold even on the groups who actually profited by each historical change. The heirs of the French, English, and American revolutions had partly believed in their own phrases about the rights of man, freedom of speech, equality before the law, and the like, and have even allowed their conduct to be influenced by them to some extent. But by the fourth decade of the 20th century, all the main currents of political thought were authoritarian. The earthly paradise had been discredited at exactly the moment when it became realizable. Every new political theory, by whatever name it called itself, led back to hierarchy and regimentation.
Thanks for watching. Shout out to all our patrons, who I forgot to list the last time I said this. Sorry about that. More What the Simpsons was talking about on the way, some fun throwback songs, and some interesting surprises. So stay tuned. Good night and good luck.